Sit down, Mr. Rodriguez.
Loved Melissa like you said you did. Why did you kill her?
Gross police brutality. He was mentally ill. Oh my God.
Trevor Summers, formerly of Tampa, Florida, was found guilty of kidnapping, attempted murder, and rape. Authorities reported that Summers forcefully entered the residence of his ex-wife, Alyssa Mathewson, and attacked her with a knife with the intent to murder. Following the attack, he kidnapped her and transported her to an isolated area, where he continued the assault. Previously, Summers had been issued a restraining order, clearly instructed to avoid any contact with Alyssa, an order he deliberately ignored. Throughout his trial, both his 14-year-old daughter and his wife were subjected to cross-examination.
Me right in the eye, and it was terrifying.
Following an extensive trial, the jury convicted Summers on every count.
They did tie her up to keep her from contacting authorities and give me enough time to get out of town.
Subsequently, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. The judge described his deeds as monstrous, observing that Summers did not regret his actions. Summers' ex-wife delivered a moving statement to the court.
Intimidating. I have a lifetime protective order against him, and he's going to be right in front of me questioning me about the crimes that he committed against me.
She detailed the distress and terror Summers inflicted upon her, voicing her comfort in knowing he could no longer harm her. Summers remained silent throughout the hearing, although his lawyer later issued a statement indicating plans to challenge the verdict. Throughout, Summers showed no reaction to his sentence. This is Isaiah Gardenhire, whose sole aim is to stun the judge and lawyers.
A bond in the amount of $3 million, cash or surety is appropriate. All right, go ahead and turn his video off, please.
Isaiah Gardenhire is being prosecuted at the Isabella County Court in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, through a Zoom hearing. The 40-year-old faces a total of 12 charges, including homicide, several counts of criminal sexual conduct, armed robbery, and carjacking. His capture followed a 2-day rampage that started with the alleged sexual assault of his ex-partner and the murder of her 13-year-old daughter. He is also accused of taking 2 individuals hostage in a nearby apartment, sexually assaulting one, and then carjacking the couple, as per police reports. Gardenhire surrendered himself as law enforcement was on an extensive search for him. The prosecution, overseen by Judge Sarah Spencer Noggle, includes the reading of Gardenhire's extensive list of charges, during which he pretends to fall asleep.
Count 1, homicide, open murder, statutory short form. Count 2, criminal sexual conduct, first degree, weapon use, DNA to be taken upon arrest. A consecutive sentence may be imposed under statute if the assault is committed by confinement. Count 6 is unlawful imprisonment.
In a clear sign of disrespect, he then yawns loudly and dramatically, showing he doesn't care about the court. Judge Sarah Spencer. Noggle keeps going without a pause, not giving him the attention he wants.
DNA to be taken upon arrest. The court may impose a consecutive sentence under statute, and it is also a Tier 3 offense.
Seeing no reaction, he tries the same dramatic yawn once more.
DNA to be taken upon arrest. A consecutive sentence may be imposed under statute if the assault is committed by confinement. Count 6 is unlawful imprisonment.
But he's ignored again. His actions have been terrible so far, and they're about to get worse when prosecutor David Barberi starts speaking.
In this case, due to the fact that Mr. Gardenhire is both charged with and the fact that he was on bond at the time the allegations occurred.
Barberi starts explaining that Gardenhire was free on bond from another sexual misconduct case when he went on his crime spree. Suddenly, Gardenhire interrupts with a shocking statement.
Charge her with murder because she's the one who did it.
Yes, you heard correctly. Gardenhire claims that his ex-partner, whom he's accused of assaulting, is the one who killed her daughter.
Yeah. Everything else, no.
Realizing this might not be in his client's best interest, Attorney Thomas Hausman quickly steps in to silence Gardenhire, as both the judge and Barberi watch in disbelief.
Mr. Gardenhire, this is your warning. The court will mute your microphone if you speak out of turn again.
Fed up with his behavior, Judge Spencer Noggle warns the defendant, and the hearing proceeds.
Or in the alternative, that bond be set as $2 million cash surety.
This time, the judge confronts him directly. As she begins to scold him, he shamelessly gestures rudely at her.
Mr. Barbary, Mr. Gardenhire, I'm going to ask that you behave in a... All right. I'm going to ask you to behave in a manner that is appropriate for a court proceeding.
Right after Judge Spencer Noggle warns him against further misconduct, he disobediently makes the same rude gesture again. In response, she ordered his audio and video to be turned off, which was done without delay.
I have any more acting out, sir. We're going to turn off your audio and your video. Go ahead and mute his audio and video. Thank you.
Despite the actions taken, Gardenhire doesn't stop mocking the court. Once his video feed is reactivated after discussing bond conditions, he resumes his immature behavior, pretending to fall asleep again. When the judge sets his bond at an increased $3 million, he repeats his offensive gesture, still pretending to sleep. He then laughs mockingly and directs even more dramatic disrespect toward Judge Spencer Noggle, moving closer to the camera for exaggeration.
The court has considered the factors found in MCR 6.106 and finds that bond in the amount of $3 million, cash or surety, is appropriate. All right, go ahead and turn his video off, please.
Due to his disruptive behavior, the hearing is cut short. Later, Gardenhire enters a no-contest plea to the charges and receives a prison sentence of 75 to 120 years. In a following trial, he's convicted of murdering 2 additional individuals in a case that occurred before the crime spree. His potential earliest release date is scheduled for 2096, at which point Gardenhire would be 115 years old. Michael Webb is a 51-year-old man from Texas who abducted an 8-year-old girl right from her mother's arms as they were walking to school in May 2019. The kidnapping was recorded on a surveillance camera, which captured Webb as he forced the child into his car and sped off. After the incident, a large-scale police search was initiated, and 8 hours later, the child was found unharmed in a hotel room in Fort Worth, Texas.
Got her! We got her! We got her!
The police managed to locate the vehicle involved in the abduction, and following a short standoff with Michael, they successfully rescued the child.
Hands! Let me see your hands! Step out here! Step out! Get on the ground!
Michael Webb was taken into custody and faced charges of kidnapping.
And I know I missed somebody because when I pushed the woman and grabbed her, I heard somebody scream.
During a 3-hour session with the FBI, Michael Webb admitted to the crime. At his trial, evidence revealed he had assaulted the minor during her ordeal, leading to his conviction on all charges. In October 2019, Webb received a life sentence without parole. Judge Reed O'Connor condemned the act as vile, cruel, and beyond understanding. The public overwhelmingly agreed with the sentence, seeing it as just for such a crime. The child's mother expressed her relief at seeing the perpetrator who brought so much suffering to her family permanently imprisoned. At the announcement of his sentence, Webb remained unremorseful, although he had shed tears during the FBI interview.
I told her that if she said anything, that I would do something to her parents.
Michael didn't physically attend the court proceedings, but the trial proceeded. Before the trial, he told the court, asserting, "You will be mistaken if you think this story has come to an end." Anthony Matthew Rodriguez, a 19-year-old from the small town of Great Falls, Montana, was recently convicted, leaving the community shocked. Rodriguez was found guilty of extremely serious offenses, including forcible rape, kidnapping with the intent to commit rape, and second-degree robbery. The town felt a sense of relief, knowing he would be imprisoned for an extended period. Throughout the trial, the jury was presented with disturbing details about Rodriguez's actions. He kidnapped his victim with the purpose of rape, placing her in significant danger.
I think that it was a crime of opportunity. I truly think that she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
The evidence against Anthony Matthew Rodriguez was compelling, leaving the jury with no alternative but to find him guilty. However, the fight in court didn't end there. Rodriguez contended that mistakes were made during his trial and claimed that his sentence was excessively harsh.
Sit down, Mr. Rodriguez. Down.
The court maintained its stance despite Rodriguez's objections, and the original verdict remained intact. The case notably highlighted the courage of the victim, who bravely faced the ordeal of recounting her traumatic experience in court.
One of the really more poignant moments during the trial was that she signed no. She was signing no to him when he was sexually assaulted.
Despite facing significant challenges, she took a stand for herself and pursued justice. Her bravery and the commitment of law enforcement and the judicial system played a crucial role in ensuring that Rodriguez was held accountable for his awful actions. Joseph Mcalpin is facing several serious charges, including murder and animal cruelty in Ohio.
Aggravated murder is prior calculation and design. Well, that's part of it. What's the difference between prior calculation and design to set up a date for a man to be put to death?
In April 2017, Joseph carried out a robbery at a car dealership that tragically resulted in the death of the business owners, a couple, and their dog.
Mcalpin thought he was smarter than everyone else, and he thought he could, plan this crime and get away with it, and he just didn't realize how easy it is to catch individuals who commit this type of crime.
In court, Joseph chose to represent himself and conducted the cross-examination of witnesses whose voices were changed to ensure their protection.
When do we know if you're lying and when do we know if you're telling the truth? How can we distinguish that to understand that?
Right now, I'm telling the truth.
How do we know that?
I don't got no reason to lie.
You didn't have no reason to lie in the beginning.
I did. I was scared.
Scared of what?
You.
Why was you scared of me?
And your family.
Why was you scared of my family?
Because if you just did those innocent people like that, you will do somebody else like that.
He also summoned members of his family to testify in his defense.
He had a hard life growing up. He seen a lot of things he shouldn't have seen as a child, but he did.
Ultimately, he settled his defense.
I'm not standing up here to say, hey, you found me guilty. I didn't mean to do it, please. I still stand firm on my innocence.
For the first time, he displayed emotion in the courtroom.
Aggravated murder is prior calculation and design. Well, that's part of it. What's the difference between prior calculation and design to set up a date for a man to be put to death?
Before sentencing, Councilman Mcalpin took the opportunity to address him directly.
Day one, this was never about vengeance. It's been about justice. I stood there on that Good Friday night as they carried out Mike and Trina and Axel in body bags. I was there. I saw the pictures from the corner. I saw what this individual did to them, the viciousness of the crime. He is a demonic. It's one thing to rob somebody, but it's another thing to do what he did.
The prosecution also made some final remarks about him.
Your Honor, pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code, we believe that consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public from future crime, not only to punish the offender, and that they would not be disproportionate to the seriousness of his conduct and to the danger he poses to the public.
Now, the moment has come to reveal his sentence.
On Thursday of last week, the jury found that the aggravating circumstances outweighed the mitigating factors beyond reasonable doubt, and therefore found the verdict to be appropriate.
Despite receiving the death penalty, Joseph remained firm in his claims of innocence.
My name is Joseph Mcalpin, and I was falsely convicted for the that happened in 2017, April 14th, in Cleveland, Ohio, at the Mr. Carr's 2 car lot. What you're about to see here is actual proof of my innocence, showing that the prosecution withheld evidence from my case that would show that I was away from the crime scene during the time the murders was being committed.
Joseph awaits his fate on death row in prison. Estaban Carpio is currently facing murder charges in Rhode Island. He gained infamy for the murder of a detective at a Providence police station in 2005. Sergeant James L. Allen, a Providence police detective, along with another detective, was interrogating Carpio at the Providence police headquarters regarding an incident involving an 85-year-old woman named Madeleine Gatta. According to police accounts, the second detective left the interview room on the 3rd floor to fetch some water, and it was at this moment that the situation took a tragic turn.
He had asked for water, and the 2 detectives that were in there with him, one left to go get the water, and they tragically heard Detective Allen say, "I think he's going to kill me. He's got my gun. He's going to kill me." By the time they broke it down, the officer was, and Carpio had jumped out the window.
However, he was detained again shortly afterward, amidst a fight with the police. Yet the drama didn't end there. As a result of the hazardous jump and the altercation with law enforcement, Carpio sustained injuries. When it was time for his sentencing, Carpio arrived in court wearing a mask intended to prevent him from spitting at or biting others. His face was visibly red, bruised, and swollen. Upon his appearance, his family members erupted in screams, accusing the police of brutality.
I'm not guilty, Stephen!
The family believed that the authorities forced him to wear the mask in an attempt to hide the alleged revengeful beating Carpio endured behind closed doors. In fact, Carpio's aunt went on live television to voice these accusations.
Police brutality! He was mentally ill, and he needed help, and we couldn't get it. We tried and tried, and he didn't deserve it.
However, Providence Police Chief Dean M. Esserman contended that Carpio's injuries occurred during his jump from the third-floor interview room and subsequent resistance during arrest. Following the allegations, the FBI conducted an investigation into the police's conduct, ultimately deciding that excessive force was not utilized.
No civil rights violation when injuries are incident to arrest, meaning if he's fighting the police officers, the officers have the right to use whatever force necessary to subdue the subject.
On June 27, 2006, a jury convicted Carpio of the murder of Detective Allen and the stabbing of Madeline Gatta. Despite pleading insanity, Carpio received a life sentence without parole. Initially, he showed little emotion in response to his sentence, remaining impassive. However, later, in a bid to sway the jury, he was heard apologizing for his actions.
Every day, I face the facts of what I did and what happened.
Carpio asserted that he was suffering from mental illness at the time of the crime, but the court dismissed his claims. Jake Patterson, a 23-year-old residing in Wisconsin, committed a shocking crime that captured national attention on October 15, 2018. He unlawfully entered the home of James and Denise Kloss, fatally shooting them before kidnapping their 13-year-old daughter, Jamie Kloss. Patterson held Jamie captive for 88 harrowing days in a remote cabin located in Gordon, Wisconsin. Thankfully, Jamie managed to escape on January 10, 2019. During the trial, prosecutors revealed the horrifying ordeal Jamie endured while in captivity. Patterson confined her to a small space under his bed for extended periods, subjecting her to physical and emotional abuse. Additionally, he forced Jamie to hide under the bed whenever he had visitors. Jamie's escape occurs when Patterson leaves the cabin, allowing her to seek help from a nearby neighbor.
And we were almost home, and she was walking towards me crying, saying, "You gotta help me, you gotta help me."
Okay.
So I didn't want to go into my cabin because it's too close to Patterson's house.
And she said her name is Jamie Kloss?
Yep.
Jake Patterson pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide and 1 count of kidnapping.
Like, absolutely anything to take back what I did, you know. I would do absolutely anything to bring them back, you know.
On May 24, 2019, the judge handed down 2 consecutive life sentences, without the possibility of parole for the murders of James and Denise Kloss. Additionally, Patterson received an extra 40 years for the kidnapping of Jamie Kloss. Upon hearing the sentence, Patterson remained emotionless. In a statement, he expressed remorse for his actions and said he would do anything to undo the harm he had caused.
And because of this monster, Jamie won't have her mom and dad at her dance recitals.
In a letter responding to a journalist's inquiry about his motives, Patterson apologized for the crime and revealed that it was driven by impulse. His grandfather described Patterson as shy, quiet, and more interested in computer games than socializing. He acknowledged that something had gone wrong with Patterson. Something did indeed go wrong. For an individual with no prior criminal record, committing such heinous acts, murdering 2 individuals, and abducting their child is not normal, rational behavior.
Not only were you a danger to the Kloss family, you are an extreme danger to the public in general.
His apparent lack of emotion during the trial and failure to explain his actions clearly left many unsatisfied with his apology. 51-year-old David Haig is appearing at Nesbitt Courthouse in Anchorage, Alaska for a status hearing. This hearing marks another chapter in the defendant's long and complex case, which has spanned over 13 years. Haig alleges widespread corruption in the handling of his case, both in the past and in the present.
You have the attorneys going down, you have the judges going down, and you have the troopers going down. You're one small part of the pocket. A lot of lawyers would agree with me. The reason is all gummed up at the top. You're just one of many.
Haig's legal problems began in 2004 when he was involved in a state predator control program aimed at eliminating wolves in the area. Authorities filed charges against him and another hunter, Tony Zellers, alleging that they had wandered outside the designated wolf control zone.
They're going in and falsifying the goddamn map that they convicted me with by altering the lines on it to make it corruptly seem I was shooting wolves in my guide area.
Zellers opted for a plea deal, but Haig rejected such an arrangement. He asserted that officials had allegedly framed him by manipulating the boundaries on the map he used to avoid negative publicity associated with the wolf control program. Haig claimed that animal rights groups were critical of the program and threatened to boycott tourism in the area. With many appeals filed, Haig's allegations carry weight, and today he is accompanied to court by over 50 supporters. Representing himself, the purpose of today's hearing is to address 5 questions outlined by the Court of Appeal, which Haig is permitted to argue.
This court didn't do right the first time, it sure can't now. That they had screwed me out of a plea deal, that the state had falsified evidence, and now they're lying about everything to cover it all up, and that's just the beginning of it.
However, as the hearing progresses, Haig repeatedly brings up matters outside of the designated issues, such as the corruption he alleges occurred. Judge William Morse eventually orders a new hearing for a later date, which enrages Haig.
So, if you want to arrest me and drag me off, that's the only way I'm leaving.
He becomes increasingly irritated as he continues to plead his case to the court, disregarding Judge Morse's instructions. Despite Judge Morse repeatedly informing Haig that the hearing is over and the court is closed, Haig continues to press his arguments, escalating the tension in the courtroom.
They falsified this before trial, and there's a recording of the prosecutor and trooper talking about falsifying it before trial.
Tensions are reaching a boiling point in the courtroom, and the situation is about to escalate further for Haig. In an attempt to assert his intentions, Haig stomps his foot on the floor, provoking a battle cry from his supporters.
And I'm putting my foot down because somebody has to.
Sensing the potential escalation of the situation, a deputy intervenes and approaches Haig. Haig, anticipating the deputy's move, instinctively steps back to avoid being grasped.
There's no more hearings here. All right. No.
Oh my God.
The push and pull continue, with Haig evading the deputy's hold. Suddenly, the deputy to the left of Haig draws his taser from his pocket. However, determined not to be stunned, Haig swiftly backs away from the deputies and into the aisle of the courtroom.
No! Oh my God!
He is eventually brought to the floor, where the taser is deployed to subdue him. As the chaotic scene unfolds, Haig's supporters appeal to Judge Morse, pleading for him to intervene and halt the deputy's actions. However, Judge Morse decides to retreat slowly through the exit to his chambers, closing the door behind him and leaving the courtroom in disorder.
You need to stop this right now! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it now, Judge! I'm a citizen of the United States!
The deputy with the taser can be seen on his knee, gesturing to the public gallery to calm down as they continue to protest against Haig's apprehension.
You do not need to tase a man when you have 6 officers on him.
Eventually, Haig is led from the courtroom as his supporters call out words of encouragement.
Sorry, Mr. Haig. Sorry, so sorry that our court system is so corrupt that they would do this to you.
Haig is later charged with disorderly conduct for disobeying Judge Morse's order to leave the courtroom. Despite this setback, he adopts the mindset of, if you can't beat them, join them by running for governor of Alaska. However, his political aspirations weaken as he doesn't advance past the primaries. Haig maintains that a sense of honor and integrity drove his stubborn disruption of the court. Introducing Stuart Campbell, the uncle of 15-year-old Danielle Jones. However, no one would wish for such a relative if his behavior were that of a typical uncle's behavior. Campbell held the title of uncle to Danielle and served as her guardian. In 2001, Danielle went missing from East Tilbury, Essex. Despite extensive searches, her body remained missing. However, police made a grim discovery. Danielle's DNA was found on blood-stained white stockings and a lip gloss. Further investigations uncovered disturbing truths. Stuart Campbell, with prior convictions for assaulting minors, emerged as the prime suspect in Danielle's disappearance. During the trial, the prosecutor revealed unsettling details. Campbell hid an attraction towards his niece.
About your relationship with Danielle. Tell me what it was about her, Stuart. Why you wanted to be with her.
No comment. He had been grooming her for months before she went missing. Campbell was arrested on suspicion of murder and charged with Danielle's murder and abduction. During the trial, the evidence against him was overwhelming, and he was found guilty of both counts. On August 23, 2002, Campbell was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 20 years for the murder of Danielle Jones. When the sentence was read, he showed no emotion.
Murder has affected hundreds of us here at Essex Police. Many of you who have come to know the family through this case still feel their pain as they continue to live without having been able to say a final goodbye to their lovely daughter.
Campbell refused to reveal the location of Jones's body. He maintained his innocence and claimed he had been framed for the crime. However, his defense was undermined by the strong evidence against him. The case also led to changes in the law, many of which are considered positive developments. This is Tyrone Johnson, facing charges of murder in Florida.
You say you hurt my mommy? Is that what he said?
In 2018, Tyrone tragically shot his then-girlfriend, Stephanie Willis, and her 10-year-old son, Ricky. Now in police custody, Tyrone is stunned by his actions.
Can you stand on one leg by yourself? Are you sure you're okay?
Alright. This is what's gonna happen, alright? I'm gonna take your left hand out, put it on top of your head for me.
Deep breaths, okay? Deep breaths. Breathe in. Breathe out.
Eventually, he composed himself enough to share his side of the story.
So you're on the ground, and she's yelling at you, and what are you doing?
He's in there too, and I'm telling him I'm not doing anything to your mom.
Okay.
She pushed me off my road, I'm trying to leave, and he was on this shoulder, and I pushed him off.
When you say he's on that shoulder, what is he doing to you?
What are you doing to my mom? And I told her I'm not doing anything to your mom.
Is he hitting you?
No, sir, he was just on my shoulder asking me, what am I doing to his mom, sir?
Whose blood's on your hand?
It's hers.
Her blood. Okay. And once you start firing, did you fire too?
I just fired, sir.
You just started firing. So you're sitting on the ground on your butt, firing. So they're basically standing up. Let's say you're sitting on the floor and they're standing up. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. And she had the PlayStation.
She's holding PlayStation like this? You just started firing. I mean, were you doing this?
I was just firing, sir.
Or were you firing at her?
I was just firing.
Was she looking at you? Was she facing you when you were?
I'm sure we were yelling.
I'm sorry?
We were yelling and was trying to talk to my dad at the same time.
Okay.
According to Tyrone, he was arguing with his girlfriend over the TV remote when he accidentally shot her. However, prosecutors disputed his account in court.
The step Tyrone Johnson took was a chance to end this, was a chance to show mercy to that little boy. Each step he took was a chance to stop this whole thing. But each step he took was a choice that he made to go find Ricky Willis. A choice he made to Ricky Willis. Shell casings, we have blood, we have holes in the wall. And look little boy's room.
The shell casings are right there in front of the bed, and they line right up with those 2 holes underneath.
The victim's family recounted to the court the deep impact of Tyrone's actions on their lives.
Not premeditation. Tragic situation that got out of control.
We feel is never ending. Every minute of every day.
We will never watch him grow up, never see who he would have become.
Despite offering an apology, Tyrone also took the opportunity to accuse the state of conducting an improper trial.
The state knowing nothing about me would have you believe that before you was a vicious man who went hunting for human life.
Eventually, Tyrone receives his sentence. Meet Thomas Knuff, who's in court facing multiple charges, including theft and murder in Ohio.
You know, when you show emotion and you say you're sorry, they say you're lying. When you don't, you're a psychopath.
Thomas was on parole when he committed the murder of John and his girlfriend Regina, following an argument.
Say he stabbed a couple in their home and left the bodies behind.
Care police say was stabbed multiple times by Knuff. We learned today in a press conference with Parma Heights Police that Knuff was released after serving more than 15 years in prison for a string of break-ins throughout Northeast Ohio. Well, during his time in prison, he became pen pals with Capo Bianco. The two wrote to each other for more than 10 years, police say. It was Capo Bianco and Mann who even picked Knuff up from prison when he was released in April.
Following investigations, Thomas was arrested. Now, in court, he addresses the crime.
Offered already to Leonid John's family that, you know, I am sorry for how things turned out. And, you know, when you show emotion and you say you're sorry, they say you're lying. When you don't, you're a psychopath. I understand that, you know, they need somebody to hate, but, you know, this isn't over. And, you know, I'm going to pursue every avenue to get the truth out.
While I'm not versed in all of your life's choices or actions, I've seen 2 glaring failures you've made. You chose, as I previously mentioned, not to peacefully exist in civilized society.
My heart is broken. I don't know if it will ever repair. I miss her every day. She will not get to see her sons get married. She will not get to be called grandma.
People that have common, ordinary jobs and start their own businesses. They were broken into because he was desperate for money. So there are also other victims here. Classic Hair Studio is a victim. Spa and nail salon. That woman closed her business out of fear that that would happen again.
The judge also had a say.
Noted that the one consistent theme was that Mr. Knuff was sorry for how things turned out, but I never heard him say that he was sorry for his own actions. Not once did I recall hearing those things. Pursuant to Division D1 of this section, which is 2929.03, there was, of course, a jury recommendation that the sentence of be imposed. The court finds by proof beyond a reasonable doubt that the aggravating circumstances the offender was found guilty of committing outweigh the mitigating factors. Therefore, on count 2, the sentence of will be imposed upon the offender.
I have to live with this for the rest of my life, so wherever I'm at, doesn't matter. No, to me, my life's over.
Thomas awaits death in prison. Mikal Thomas has just been sentenced to 35 years in prison by Judge David Borowski, having pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree homicide for the murder of Sharon Staples and her unborn child. Before the killings, Thomas had an extensive criminal record and was meant to be either in custody or on home monitoring. The tragic incident occurred when Thomas, traveling in a stolen minivan with 2 accomplices, spotted Staples walking with her 13-year-old son. Thomas and one of the van's occupants attempted to steal Staples' purse, but when she resisted, Thomas shot her. He fled the scene but returned shortly after to retrieve the purse before fleeing once again. Tensions were already high during the hearing, prompting 9 deputies to be stationed to monitor the 24 spectators in the public gallery who had come to support Thomas.
We're going to do that, and as long as you are calm and cooperative,
We will then, once I know that they are clear, we will escort you down out of the building, and you need to leave immediately.
The defendant has remained silent and composed for the most part during the proceedings. However, the atmosphere suddenly shifts as he prepares to leave the courtroom. The sheriff's deputies flanking him are on high alert, sensing that something is about to happen. One deputy places his hands on Thomas's shoulders while another reaches for his arm, bracing for potential escalation. Thomas suddenly moves to the right, triggering chaos as he attempts to escape the guard's hold. Reacting quickly, the deputy on the left applies pressure to Thomas's shoulders, forcing him to the ground.
Don't do that!
A third deputy rushes over to assist in calming Thomas while chaos erupts in the public gallery. Among the commotion, a woman seated next to the man in the white shirt becomes particularly vocal, expressing her objection to the guard's handling of Thomas by shouting, "Don't do that to him!"
Don't do that!
Despite being cuffed and shackled, Thomas continues to struggle as the deputies attempt to remove him from the courtroom. They grab him under the arms and lift him to his feet, intending to escort him out. However, Thomas resists, pulling against them and attempting to move towards the gallery, calling out to his supporters. The deputies appear to regain control, but suddenly, Thomas throws himself to the ground, reigniting the fight once more. Once again, Thomas is pulled to his feet, and the deputies expertly drag him from the room as he continues to wrestle and shout.
You okay, baby mama? Got you? You okay? You okay?
Amidst the uproar, Thomas's mother can be heard shouting words of comfort to her son. The commotion continues in the public gallery. One deputy issues a strict warning to Thomas's supporters.
Listen! All right, please. No good is going to be done by this courtroom being disrupted, okay?
Several more officers enter the area to provide reinforcement amidst the escalating situation. Everything appears relatively calm as the crowd begins to exit the gallery until the man in white becomes upset and starts swearing.
Just wait, okay? We're going to let everything go. Mama right there. Come on, every time I fuck a little bit, leave it alone.
The deputies are taking no chances this time as one officer swiftly steps in and leads the man to the side before placing him in handcuffs. He is then escorted from the gallery through a separate exit, restoring calmness in the courtroom. Thankfully, the squad of trained deputies was skilled enough to maintain control over Thomas's unruly supporters. Leonid Grazer is facing trial in Russia, accused of murdering his sister, Ariana Karol, by stabbing. The 18-year-old admitted to the heinous act after being detained by Moscow police, stating Satan commanded him to commit the crime. To guarantee the safety of guards, court staff, and bystanders, Grazer is held in a reinforced glass enclosure at the Sherbinsky District Court throughout the trial. He engages briefly in conversation with a courtroom guard through a slim opening in the enclosure. He moves back to the shaded window area, halting abruptly when a thought strikes him. Observe the change in Grazer's expression, signaling a sudden awareness. With purpose, he bends down, extending his hands through the slim horizontal window, clutching the outer edge as he attempts to maneuver his upper body through the gap. However, stopped by the size of his head, which fails to pass through, he instead leans back, swinging his right leg towards the window in an attempt to emerge feet first. Observe as the female guard reaches through the window to grasp his leg, prompting him to retreat to the box's center, away from the officer's reach. Yet, Grazer begins to create another scheme, eyeing the box's ceiling for a different way out. Noticing Grazer's shifting focus, a male court officer signals him toward the access window to distract him. After a brief conversation, Grazer appears to relax. But just when calm appears to have been reinstated, an unexpected development occurs. Grazer leaps onto the box's low bench, attempting to navigate through a tight space between the ceiling slats. The officers, initially unfazed, watch as he positions a leg on each side of the enclosure, inching upwards. However, the moment his head pushes a styrofoam ceiling tile out of place, indicating his significant progress, the guards acknowledge the severity of the situation and swiftly respond. See how 3 officers scramble to reach Grazer as he vanishes through the ceiling. Although 2 guards grasp his legs and a 3rd strikes him with a baton, Grazer stubbornly climbs higher, struggling so intensely that his pants are left in an officer's hands. Additional guards rush in for support. One nears Grazer's leg, taser in hand. Wary of the taser, Grazer, now in the attic, removes 2 ceiling tiles and begs the officer not to use it on him.
Помогите! Помогите мне! Помогите мне! Помогите мне! Дайте мне руку!
The guard persists in brandishing the taser close to Grazer's leg, provoking him to retreat back through the ceiling, entangled in wires and debris. Grazer then re-enters the box, readjusts his pants, and the proceedings resume with him in handcuffs to stop any more escape efforts. In the end, Grazer was convicted of the murder. In his final statement to the court, he expressed no remorse for his actions, leading to his sentence to compulsory psychiatric treatment. This is the case of Jeremy Christian, who stands accused of several murders in Oregon. The event unfolded on a packed train, where Christian launched into a racially charged outburst aimed at young women.
I'm happy as a motherfucker. Hopefully this motherfucker dies. Especially that motherfucker hands on me. I told him, you ain't gonna heal, punk. You still want to put hands on me. Die, bitch. Fucking die. All that time. Some people die for being punk. Some people die for being patriots. That's the bottom line. Yeah, I'm still alive. I'm still alive.
No matter how awful Jeremy Christian's crimes were, his conduct during the trial was equally shocking. Convicted of 2 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder, Christian's behavior at the sentencing hearing was unpredictable and disruptive. Demetria Hester, a black woman previously assaulted by Christian, voiced her dissatisfaction with the court's management of the case. She criticized the court for not shielding her and the other victims from Christian's chaotic and disrespectful antics throughout the trial.
Hey, free speech! Free speech, son! Y'all are patriots! Kill yourselves if you hate free speech! Kill yourselves! Kill me! Die! That's what a patriot is! We don't pay taxes! You pay taxes on to the patriot! You die! All you die! What is on me? Right, butter, fucking person, right.
Rewinding the footage, you'll notice Christian abruptly knocking a bystander's phone to the floor without provocation, sparking chaos on the train. It was at this point that passengers, including Micah Fletcher and Taliesin Namkai Meche, stepped up to shield the young women from Christian, who turned increasingly hostile. The confrontation quickly intensified. Christian drew a folding knife and assaulted Fletcher, Namkai Meche, and Ricky Best. This violent act led to the tragic loss of Best and Namkai Meche, with Fletcher enduring severe injuries but surviving. Christian immediately escaped the scene, pursued by train passengers until police captured him roughly a mile away. The video showing Christian in the police car afterward was particularly disturbing.
Asked me for my ID and treated me like I was being labeled because of my color. The officer let Jeremy walk away and police resisted murder while looking for me.
At this stage, Christian erupted in an outburst, hurling insults at the victim's mother. As Jeremy was being led out of the courtroom, he made a point to add these disturbing comments. Judge Cheryl A. Albrecht subsequently sentenced Christian to 2 consecutive life terms, in addition to over 25 years for his other charges. This verdict was seen by many as fitting justice for his actions. Jack Dean Whitaker appeared in court facing manslaughter charges. In April 2010, under the influence of methamphetamines, Whitaker drove recklessly, resulting in a catastrophic crash with 21-year-old Kayla Wilson of Gresham, Oregon, who was 5 months pregnant at the time. The crash left Wilson in a somatic state, and after enduring complications from her injuries for 8 years, she passed away. The devastating aftermath forced her family, already emotionally devastated and financially strained, to opt for an emergency C-section to save her daughter, Jaikila. The courtroom was tense as members of Kayla Wilson's family prepared to deliver their victim impact statements, setting the stage for Whitaker's alarming courtroom behavior.
So I asked myself, any amount of time that Jack Whitaker could serve cannot make up for the loss of my daughter. Absolutely not.
The court proceedings took a harrowing twist as Whitaker strongly denied any responsibility for the crash, rudely interrupting the victim's family members while they were speaking to the court. He showed no signs of remorse, and his justification stunned those present in the courtroom.
Because the jury found me guilty does not mean that I'm guilty, and that's why I cannot show remorse. Because I did not do it.
Never know her mom and dad again.
I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
Despite the compelling evidence against him and the severity of his actions, Whitaker stubbornly maintained his innocence and boldly confronted the court. He even went so far as to interrupt the judge.
Whitaker, you had a chance already. This is my opportunity.
Yeah, well, I didn't do it.
The case stirred deep emotions, leaving even the judge on the verge of tears.
I'm deeply sorry that you've had to endure the life-changing injuries to Kayla, to her daughter, and to the rest of the family.
On December 6, 2019, Jack Dean Whitaker was sentenced to 16 years for first-degree manslaughter. However, Whitaker viewed this sentence as excessive, insisting on his innocence.
11 years. Yeah. For being innocent. You're kidding me. 11 years, that's enough.
Upon his release from prison, Whitaker's driving license will be suspended for 8 years. Paul Wade, a 31-year-old man, has been caught and detained in connection with the deaths of Edward Lamont Smith and Alexis McCrary, both 26 years old. While arrest details are limited, court filings indicate that Wade is charged with crimes relating to these 2 homicides. During a court hearing, as Wade's attorney addresses the judge, whispers from the victims' families are audible in the backdrop. However, these whispers soon escalate, interrupting the court's proceedings. A court officer intervenes, cautioning the families to remain composed.
Different. Mr. Eggert is
The judge warns the families that they may be expelled from the courtroom due to their disturbances. The families, identifying themselves as relatives of the victims, implore the judge to understand, yet the whispers continue.
You're going to have to leave the courtroom. You have to
We all family.
Okay, you've got to not talk. Okay. No talking in the courtroom. Go ahead.
The courtroom proceedings are orderly until Paul makes his exit. As he leaves, he mutters what seems to be an insult directed at the victim's family. This provocation triggers immediate chaos. Family members hurtle over chairs, chasing after Paul. The pursuit extends into the hallway, with a dramatic scene unfolding as one individual even leaps over the judge's bench to confront Paul. Amid the chaos, Paul unintentionally hits his head against a door while trying to escape. Although one family member attempts to de-escalate the situation, their efforts fall short. Court officers are forced to use pepper spray on 2 of the pursuing individuals. The courtroom is then secured, and an evacuation follows. Amidst this disturbance, the judge seeks to lessen the distress and bring the courtroom back to order.
He's wrong!
You stay back.
He's wrong!
Following the disturbance, Paul Wade was quickly recaptured and taken back into custody. At the same time, 4 relatives, Joshua Smith, Isaiah Smith, Joshua Whetstone, and Minetra Kane, were detained and charged with misdemeanors. Their charges included disorderly conduct and obstruction of governmental operations. Amidst the eager anticipation of her first ever date, a girl's hopes rise, imagining the beginnings of a new connection. Yet, the story takes a dramatic twist. Within a courtroom filled with tension and expectancy, Kashontai Hosomla Short Brundage courageously testifies against Richard Jordan, accusing him of an offense far exceeding the disappointment of a failed date. As her story unfolds, it reveals a complex tangle of deception, manipulation, and dashed hopes. Disastrous dates are a part of life's rough patches, and they can worsen feelings of anger and injustice, particularly during vulnerable times. The death of Kashontai Hosomla Short Brundage's mother marked the darkest period in her life, leaving her feeling exposed and desperate for comfort. It was during this time that she arranged to meet Richard Jordan, seeking some form of comfort. However, Jordan decided against showing up, a decision hidden in uncertainty but possibly linked to Short's reputation for impulsiveness. Feeling betrayed, Kashontai Short resolved to make Jordan face the consequences of his absence on such an emotional day. She initiated a lawsuit demanding $10,000 in damages.
Answer. If he responds and his response is a lie, it's perjury, then my documents will prove that he lied in his response.
No.
The lawsuit, initially filed in 2020, only recently came before District Judge Herman Marable Jr., who found himself unable to provide the assistance Short Brundage sought, much to her dismay. The court's function is to determine legal responsibilities and possible remedies rather than to judge moral rightness or wrongness. While some courts specialize in criminal cases, others address family law disputes, minor financial claims, and more. Short Brundage brought her case to district court, but claims of emotional distress are typically settled in a different judicial forum. During a Zoom hearing involving both Short Brundage and Jordan, Judge Marable explained to Short that her allegations of emotional distress were outside the courtroom's jurisdiction.
That's not something that's really justiciable in district court.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I said that's not something that's justiciable in district court. That has to be brought in circuit court.
The judge inquired of Mr. Jordan if he plans to defend himself in whichever court the case ultimately lands. Jordan's reply was to briefly share his version of events.
To be honest with you, sir, I thought this was just going to be thrown out. We had a date, one date, and nothing else after that. And now I'm being sued for $10,000. I don't see how this is going to go any further. I think it's a waste of your time.
Bottom line is you said it's a criminal offense, so I will send it to circuit court. Are we done here?
No, you don't understand, ma'am. You don't understand.
Are we done here? Are we done here?
Perjury is
perjury means. I know exactly what perjury means. I know.
The judge continues in his efforts. Kashontai continues to raise her voice in protest while Richard remains silent, observing the unfolding situation. Nicholas Twinstra is on trial for the murders of his estranged wife, Melissa Twinstra, and her boyfriend, Justin Daniels. After moving on from her marriage, Melissa began a new chapter and a new relationship, only to be tragically shot by Twinstra at her apartment complex.
In the criminal complaint, Twinstra actually hints at a murder-suicide theory, telling investigators, quote, he didn't know what Justin was capable of.
Right after the incident, the police initiated an urgent search for Twinstra's 8-year-old daughter, issuing an Amber Alert. Fortunately, she was found safe at her grandparents' house, where she was with her father, the perpetrator. The evidence against Twinstra was substantial, including the purchase of the murder weapon and confirmation of his presence at the crime scene.
Officers responding to the scene found the female in a pool of blood.
Twinstra's actions were shocking enough, but his behavior during the court proceedings added to the drama. Found guilty at trial, the atmosphere was tense during his sentencing. Prosecutor Andrew Christensen pointed out Twinstra's abusive treatment of Melissa, notably in front of their daughter.
While claiming to investigators on Sunday that he had never been to 203 Broadway Street, changed his story on Tuesday, admitted he had been there during the time frame of the homicide.
However, Twinstra took issue with the tone and content of what was said. In response, he reacted in the following manner.
Stay in recess.
And not touch her hair. You only got pushed that one time and stuck her nails. That was it. That was the only.
When he spoke again, Twinstra issued a short apology, attributing his reaction to his daughter's sensitive topic. Nevertheless, the judge had doubts about the sincerity of his intentions.
I apologize for the outburst to the prosecution. My daughter is a very sensitive subject.
During the proceedings, the court was presented with heartfelt impact statements from Melissa's family, detailing the intense grief and turmoil the senseless murder had inflicted on them.
Murdered 2 people because his ego was bruised.
If you, Nick, loved Melissa like you said you did, why did you kill her?
Ultimately, Judge Mark Slate handed down a sentence of 2 life terms without the possibility of parole to Twinstra, openly noting his apparent lack of remorse for the crimes committed.
Remorse by the defendant. He continues to blame others.
Even so, Twinstra was granted the right to supervised prison visits with his daughter. He continued to assert his innocence, claiming that undisclosed facts would come to light during his appeal process. Nevertheless, his appeal was eventually rejected. Attorney Michelle McDonald, representing the mother in a child custody hearing in Hastings, Minnesota, steps into the courtroom on the second day of the trial. Before the proceedings begin, McDonald approaches the court reporter, claiming inaccuracies in the recording of the previous day's testimony. She asserts that if the court reporter is unable to fulfill her duties, McDonald will assume control. Next, McDonald pulls out her phone and captures a photo of the courtroom. The courtroom deputy notices McDonald's photography and informs her of the district courtroom's prohibition against it, quickly confiscating her camera. Despite initial tension, the hearing resumes. However, during a later recess, deputies serve McDonald with a contempt citation for violating the photography rule. McDonald refuses to cooperate or provide personal information, resulting in her custody. In an unusual move, she's handcuffed to a wheelchair typically reserved for violent offenders. Despite her predicament, McDonald remains composed but declines to engage with Judge David Knutson or present evidence for her client. Following the proceedings, McDonald files a federal civil rights lawsuit against Judge Knutson and county personnel, alleging mistreatment during her courtroom appearance and subsequent 36-hour detainment. However, her legal action backfires as she receives a 60-day suspension and 2 years of probation for various infractions, including repeatedly interrupting Judge Knutson and unauthorized photography. Matters escalated further when the Minnesota Supreme Court indefinitely suspended McDonald's law license due to false accusations against Judge Knutson, which were seen as undermining his integrity in the original case. Big thanks to our viewers for joining the courtroom journey with us. Your interest in the stories of justice is what keeps our channel alive.